Morning everybody. Today we're playing back in the peninsula. So we're playing the French Rearguad at Salamanca in 1812. So it's about 8 o'clock in the evening and French units are streaming from the field after Wellington has caught and smashed the French divisions one after another. And despite counterattacks by French generals Bonnet and Clausel, both have been defeated and forced to retreat. Now we're down to the last division, Division Ferré, who places, and General Ferré places his intact division in front of the advantaged British to try and slow the British advance and allow the rest of the French army to quit the field relatively intact. And as evening approaches, it's imperative that Ferré's battalions can hold this line till light falls. The British need to break through. This is going to be a tough game for the French. They're significantly outmatched in terms of the quality of the British troops, but the French do have more artillery, and the British only have 9 turns to break both of Ferré's brigades. But they are both brigades have quite precarious morale, so there's some special morale rules for the brigades because the rest of the French army is fleeing. So they're not very robust in terms of their ability to withstand British pressure. All right, this will be a race against time. Can the British break through? Let's see. Quick 9-turn game. All right, we'll crack on. Okay, in turn 1, the French have initiative and they've been firing with their artillery, causing light casualties because it's at long range against the advances in British lines. The British have decided on balance they're going to advance in line rather than in column, just to try and minimise the shots from the French artillery, as we have 2 French artillery batteries to 1, and they want to try and preserve as much strength as they can till they get to closer range. The 2 skirmisher screens have closed in on one another, and the British light cavalry is also just arrived on table, so they'll start being a bit of a threat to the French position as well. All right, that's it for opening movement. We'll now fire the skirmish screens and then we'll crack on with turn 2. Okay, let's roll for turn 2. So the British get 4 ADCs, with 5 ADCs actually, with a bonus for their commander and their general morale status. So they get 4 ADCs this turn. The French just get 2 for their 2 brigades. Okay, the French already know what they'll do. Well, do they? They might go for artillery assault, although the British are still at long range, so I don't think we will. We will go for rerolls on both of our French brigades, the right brigade and the left brigade. The left brigade needs its reroll. Yeah, both French brigades are active. The British will go for our infantry assault again and a reroll, this time on the KGL brigade here in the centre. Let's see how they do. They need their reroll. No, they go hesitant. That's not great for the British. Okay, then the right-hand brigade, which we'll put a reroll on, which goes active. The left-hand brigade goes active, and the British cavalry goes active. So this will be a test at -1 on the British, as they have 1 hesitant brigade. The French again retain initiative for turn 2. There'll be no charges, so we get straight on with French and then Allied movement. Okay, for turn 2, the British left-hand brigade is now advancing steadily towards the French lines. They are in effective range, not far off short range of the French artillery, so they'll start causing more damage this turn. We've got the KGL brigade hesitant, so unable to advance. The supporting British brigade has moved forward and now caught up with the KGL, and the British cavalry has now advanced further on table, and the French artillery is going to have to fire at them this turn as the closest threat, and both these French battalions have formed square as precautionary measures, but the artillery is feeling a bit exposed. All right, let's crack on with French firing. We'll start with the skirmishers and then we'll come back for the artillery on camera. Okay, the French guns will open fire against the British artillery, British cavalry rather. This is at effective range. Not great. They roll a 5. They do get a 5 on the red dice, which is their bounce through, but a 5 at effective range is purely 1 casualty against the British cavalry and 1 cavalry on the light dragoons who are supporting them. Okay, and then the second French battery is going to open fire against the British troops around that tree. You can see in the centre again the red dice is the bounce through. They don't get any bounce through, but they do get a pretty good result, an 11 at effective range is 3 casualties on the Allies and a discipline test. Let's roll their discipline test. That'll be at -1 as well. These troops are just line for the British. They roll a 6. At -1 will be a 5. They go okay, so we've rolled for ADCs. Again, the Allies get 5 ADCs, but they're having to commit quite a lot to get their infantry assault orders in place. So we've got infantry assault now on the KGL brigade in the middle. The brigade on the far left wing is active for the British, but unfortunately this big brigade on the right wing has gone hesitant and we didn't have the ADCs to give to the reroll. Fortunately for the British, the cavalry has gone active. The French, as they're threatened by the cavalry, have put artillery assault on the gun crews here so they can try and improve the strength of their defensive volley. And again, both French brigades also went active. We've rolled for initiative and it's a draw, 8-8, but the French had initiative last turn, so the French keep initiative this turn. Charges, the British will have to decide whether they have a go with their cavalry, and if so, how. Okay, so first thing will be defensive volley. The French will load shrapnel and case shot and have a go at the charging British Hussars. Alright, so this will be a shot at close range. Wow, we roll a 4. That's devastating. It's going to be the end of this artillery battery. It's only half a casualty, which doesn't come off, and the bounce through, if it's within canister range, also does not do any casualties. So no casualties on the French cavalry. Alright, that's not a great start. We do get the 2 artillery dice, so let's roll them. That's better. They do cause 2 casualties with the artillery dice, so they will have some negative modifiers on that cavalry as it tries to charge in. Okay, so the Hussars are veterans, and they've got their general attached. For the French, we've also attached our general, and we cause 2 casualties, so that'll be +1. Let's see how we do. Oh my gosh, that's pretty impressive. Both have rolled a double 6, both have got support, so they're not going to change that. I don't think I've ever seen that before. 4 6s. Alright, so that's a draw, and the modifiers were +2 on both sides, so that is a draw. So on charge results, cavalry versus infantry, on a 0-2, the casualties take 1 casualty, the cavalry take 1 casualty, and the defenders stand, and the cavalry fall back. Well done, those French gunners. Alright, following that remarkable roll of double 6s, we'll crack on with normal movement in turn 3. Whether this is wise or not, the British have decided to keep the pace up. So the battalion here was unformed, so it has reformed itself, and it was blocking this battalion. This battalion are actually veterans, as are the 2 white flagged British units I have in the 2 pure British brigades. So they use their veteran status to change formation into a column, and then they've advanced to keep the front line intact. They can deploy again into line next turn, but they are in column right in front of the guns. But we're keeping the pressure on here. The KGL have moved on support, and the other forces are either retiring or hesitant. Right, that's it. We'll now move on for firing for the French. So at the moment, this artillery battery is still seeing the cavalry brigade as its greatest threat, so it's going to have a go again against them. The blue dice again will be the bounce through. They roll a 5 and nothing on the bounce through, and at effective range, a 5 is just 1 casualty against the Hussars. But I think that does take them to 4, so that's at least a morale point down for charge tests. Okay, so the French artillery on the right really has to have a go against that column. Looks an irresistible target. It will get an extra combat dice for firing at effective range or close range against a column formation. Let's see how they do. They roll a 7. At effective range is unfortunately only 1 casualty, and 1 more from the combat dice. Alright, we'll mark it up on the British. Okay, skirmisher fire's finished. The French down here have been remorseless in concentrating their skirmish fire on the 95th Rifles as their greatest threat, and they have succeeded in taking one of the bases of British skirmishers off due to their successful firing. The 95th and their colleagues have been not very effective in their return fire. Down here, the British have caused a casualty against the French gun crew, and the French skirmishers on this side retired in the face of those advancing cavalry, so they don't get a shot. That's it for turn 3. On we go with turn 4. Alright, orders for turn 4, both sides taking some risks. So again, the Allies with their 5 ADCs feel like they have the advantage here, but they have been again putting infantry assault on. So the 3rd Brigade now has infantry assault and is active, but as a result of committing so many ADCs to that, the British Brigade in the centre, the KGL, has now gone hesitant. We did give our re-roll to our leading brigade on the left flank, and that can continue its attack. And clearly after the reverse last turn, the Allied cavalry are having second thoughts, so they have also gone hesitant. For the French, we also took a risk. We switched artillery assault to our artillery battery on the right. As the threat's close there, that came off, even though we had no re-roll, but we had no re-roll for our left-hand brigade. So we have one hesitant brigade for the French. So the French will be still +1 on this die roll. They roll a 9. Again, the Allies roll a 9, another draw, but the French retain initiative because of the more hesitant brigades on the Allies. There's been some minor rejigging on the French position. These 2 battalions in square have slightly moved forward and to the right to make sure they're in support range of the artillery battery here. Otherwise, everything else remains where it was. The British, feeling the relentless pressure of the clock, knowing they've only got 9 turns to do this, and this is already the end of turn 4, or in turn 4, they're pushing forward with this attack on their left flank. Unfortunately, their centre and right is not advancing as quickly, and the French potentially have an advantage here. The British attack's going in piecemeal. They've got an opportunity to at least use their ADCs to create more effective defence on the right-hand side, and they have the opportunity to do that as the pressure is not uniform along their front. And with an attack going in piecemeal, you never know, the French may hold out. All right, some really important artillery firing for the French. Let's see if they can roll better than the 3 or 4 this time, as those British battalions close right up to the French lines. Okay, so the French artillery on the left is going to fire. It's going to go at the left-hand British battalion and go for bounce through. This will be at effective range. Do a bit better this time. They get 1 casualty for the direct shot, and with an 8 they get 2 casualties on the front battalion, and as I say, 1 casualty on the bounce through. Also, the French skirmishers fired and have taken off another British base here that were threatening the French artillery. Here the French light infantry are firing. They are line infantry, and they'll be firing through the 95th Rifle skirmish screen, which is too close to the British to prevent the shots going through, but will absorb the first casualty. So let's fire here against the British. This will be a standard volley. They get an 8. I think that might be 3 casualties. Let's just check again on the right flank. The French will fire here against the yellow flagged. I think that's the Gloucester's regiment. Let's get some dice. Sorry about that. And let's see how we do. We roll a 7. I don't know why I rolled an extra dice. I didn't need to. A 7. So I think that's just 2 casualties. First one of which again will go on the skirmish. And now we fire the guns against the veteran British battalion just to our front. This will be close range, and we are on artillery assault. That's not a great roll. That's 7 and no bonuses from the artillery assault dice. So let's just check what a 7 is at close range. Probably 3 casualties again, I'm guessing. It's actually 2 casualties in a discipline test, so let's do the discipline test on the British. They roll a 9, they lose 1, so they go down to an 8, but they're veterans, so they would actually pass on a 6. So the British pass that test and are in a dangerous position in front of that French artillery. I think that's French firing for the turn. We'll now do return fire from the British. Okay, so the worth of British skirmishes in the peninsula is really shown here. So this British skirmish screen on the far left flank of the British position has caused 3 casualties on that battalion of French line infantry it is engaging with. And over here in the centre, our somewhat beleaguered 95th Rifles have also unleashed a devastating set of musketry, knocking out several of the commanders of this French battalion, light battalion that they're facing, and indeed inflicting 3 casualties on the battalion this turn, taking that one up to 5. All right, that's it. We're not going to fire the British battalion in the centre because it's moved forward. It would be an inferior volley, and they'd be firing at deployed artillery at -2. So they potentially just lose fire discipline, so we don't really see the value in that. All right, that's it for turn 4. Let's get on with turn 5. Okay, in turn 5, the French have retained initiative, but they've not been so successful with their ADCs. They only had 2, as they have every turn. Again, they put them on artillery assault on this right-hand battery, and unfortunately, this right-hand brigade has gone hesitant. All other brigades are active, including all of the British ones for the first time. So let's get on with charges in turn 5. There may be some British going in this turn. So all along the line, this is a real test for the French. All of the British battalions are going in. There is an opportunity for the French commander to change this formation out of square as their threat from the front is greater than the threat from the flank, but it'll have to roll 1 higher than its own normal leadership test to be able to do that. So they'll have to roll at least an 8 to override their rules of their CNC, who said that these flank battalions have to remain in square. So we'll see whether that happens in the normal movement phase, but first we've got some charges to resolve. Let's start on the right. So we've got a defensive volley by the French against this attacking British battalion. Let's see what they do. This will be a standard volley. That's not bad. That's a 9. That's 3 casualties on the Allies and a discipline test. The Gloucesters, having suffered a lot of bounce through and some fire from skirmishers earlier in the game, are actually now on 9 casualties. So this will have to be a test at -2. They roll an 8. That becomes a 6. So they don't flee, but they do go unformed, and that won't help this charge going in. Okay, due to the amount of casualties they've suffered this turn and the fact they've gone unformed, this test is significantly worse than the British anticipated. It's actually at -6. All right, the French get a 7, the British get an 8. The French will get a re-roll with a -1 from their square. That only goes down to a 6, so it's a 6 versus an 8. The Allies becomes a 2, so it's a 6 versus a 2. Infantry -4. They retire with 1 casualty. All right, that's probably the threat from that British battalion seen off for this game. Okay, so defensive canister. Wow, that's pretty good. That'll certainly help them hold this line. So that's 9 casualties against the British at close ranges. 3 more casualties on that battalion and a discipline. This is a test at -2. They roll a 9, that's a 7. So they are actually okay. Let's do the charge result. So this will be an Allied test at -4. Neither side have any re-rolls. Okay, so the French get a 4, the Allies get a 3, so the Allies goes down to a -1. So the French win by 5. That'll be the same result. The Allies retire with 1 casualty. Okay, and we also have to do a risk to general test. This is a 5, so the general survives. And finally, the last volley by the French against this attacking British battalion. Again, not too bad. They roll a 7. And there will also be supporting fire from the French battalion next to them. And they roll a 9. This really will put power to this British attack. All right, so this will be another charge result test at -5. French potentially get a re-roll. They need that on a double 1. I probably don't. So they get a 4. The British get a 5, but the British are on 0. So the French win by 4. Again, a retreat result, or sorry, a retire result for the British. Okay, the rest of turn 5 looks like the attack's rolling in against this flank for the British. So the British cavalry are now up on the edge of the ridge. These 2 French battalions are forced to stay in the square, and the other 2 British brigades are now approaching the French lines, although the 3rd British brigade, as you can see in the distance there, lies shattered back towards its baseline. All right, that's it for movement. It'll be French firing first in turn 5. Okay, so all French units are fired apart from in the close assaults, apart from this gun. So it's going to fire at this British battalion down here. The red dice will be the bounce through on the battalion behind. Both are in shrapnel range. I think that's how you do it. We roll a 5, so we do cause 1 casualty on the rear unit, but a 5. I think at best will be 1 on the front. Okay, so both sides have got 1 hesitant brigade. The KGL, unfortunately for the Allies, despite having a re-roll, has gone hesitant. All other brigades are active, and for the French, the right-hand brigade is active, but this left-hand brigade is hesitant. May not be too much of a problem because everything's at close range. Let's roll for initiative. It's a straight roll-off. The Allies finally get initiative. Let's see what they'll do this time. So the British want to exploit the weak point in this French position. They're looking to charge this square, which they've done. They've got a battalion in rear support and a battalion attacking the guns, but they will take a defensive volley from that other French line battalion. All right, let's work out these charges. This is a critical stage in the battle. This feels like it's the moment for the British. Okay, firing the artillery battery at the British battalion that's charging it. Double 1. That's a fatigue casualty. That's not great. And 1 casualty on the bounce through. My gosh, that is not going to stop an attack. All right. Then this French battalion will fire in support at the attacking British battalion. Oh, that was nearly a 3, but it just fell back to being a 5. Not great, but not too bad. Sorry, a 7. That's 2 casualties on that attacking British battalion. Probably not enough to stop it going in, especially as that British battalion, I think, has taken no casualties. No casualties or 1. Let me just check. Now the square will fire at the attacking British battalion. This is a square, fires at half effect. Ah, that's pretty good. That's an 11. So at half effect, that's not too bad. So a standard volley at half effect is 2 casualties and a discipline test on the British. All right, let's do their discipline test. Let's hope they can pull this off. They roll a 6. That's not great. They will go unformed, and they took 2 casualties. All right, now let's roll the charge results. Right, Charlie's arrived for this critical part of the battle. He decided to attach his general to this assault on this French square. Both of us have supports. I've got a support of a square, so this will be at -1. And I'm testing at -2, wasn't it, Charlie?
No, I get +2.
You get +2. I get minus. No, I get -0. All right. I get a 5.
I get a 7. I'm going to reroll my 2.
You get an 11. I'm going to re-roll my 1. I get a 6. -1 is a 5.
So I get 13 total, so I can scare.
You get a 13. That smashes that square. All right, so Charlie's charged on into the artillery. I assume the artillery doesn't get another shot because it's already done its shot against, or it, I don't know which way this goes. I'm sure the artillery can only fire once, even though it's being charged twice, once against both squares. Oh no, it's already fired, didn't it? It did 2 casualties against the battalion charging it. All right, so let's do the modifiers for this one. Okay, so this is a straight roll-off. I'm at -1, aren't I, Charlie? But we both have supports. Oh, terribly. I roll 3,
9.
Charlie rolls 9, he wins by 6.
It's
another falter, and that artillery battery is destroyed. Right, that was a bit devastating, so we lost our battalion, and then Charlie charged on and overran the gun battery as well, so they've both gone. There'll be a falter test on this brigade next turn. Otherwise, my reserves are formed up into column to try and redeploy to hold this flank in case we can manage to keep this brigade in the fight. And actually on the right flank, given that we've driven the British back, we're starting to go on the offensive, so if we can break that British brigade. All right, we'll start with French firing, and we'll do skirmishers, and then I'll come back with the artillery. All right, firing this French artillery battery at long range against the central British infantry battalion. We roll a 3. It's really not the French turn. This is a fatigue casualty. Okay, this French battalion on the hill is now going to fire against the KGL in the valley. We roll an 8. That's not too bad. I think an 8 for a standard volley is 3 casualties on the KGL. All right, Charlie, I think that's it for my firing. Now yours. Okay, KGL are firing up at the, which battalion, Charlie? This one or that one?
That one.
Okay, so this will be a superior volley. A 7. That will be, for a superior volley, 3 casualties against the French. All right, that's it for firing this turn. On we go with turn 7 and some critical ADC rolls and falter tests. So the special rules for the rearguard are, if I fail this falter test, if I don't get an obey orders or a rally, my 2nd brigade then has to take a leadership test, and if it fails that, it also will have to take a falter test. All right, let's roll the falter test. I don't have a reroll on this, so I get a 3. They retire off table. So, and then I'll do my, I need to do my leadership test. I roll an 8, so the other brigade does stand. So fortunately for the French, the 2nd Brigade is still fighting on, trying to keep the French retreat intact despite their fellows fleeing off table. We're on turn 7, so we need some rapid moving from Charlie to try and break this brigade. There are some threats, but no immediate threats to this brigade position, so French have got a chance still. Let's crack on, turn 7 and initiative. The French have initiative, they get to move first. So in turn 7, Charlie's wheeling all his troops to face off against the British, and he's got his, against the French, and he's brought his skirmishers up to open fire. The French have responded by wheeling their positions to the left, reforming and spinning that reserve battalion to try and secure that flank, moving their skirmishers around and continuing to press on the right. All right, let's crack on. It'll be French firing first. Okay, so the French have fired. We did a volley against Charlie's skirmishers, didn't do anything. Our artillery fired against one of his battalions in this brigade, trying to break it. It's on 11 casualties now, so hopefully we'll get rid of that next turn. And then this battalion and these skirmishers picked on the KGL. We did cause 4 or 5 casualties this turn on that front KGL battalion, and they have retreated. They failed a discipline test. But otherwise we now await the withering volley from Charlie in return. Okay, over to you, Charlie. All right, it's rapidly unwinding for the French, even though they were really successful in driving off the KGL this turn. The combined fire of the British skirmishers and the British off-table long-range artillery battery caused a discipline test on the battalion that was lining the hill here and was the linchpin of the French defence. I rolled a 3 or a 4. They were up to 9 casualties. They failed their test and they've retreated off-table. So no discipline test for me this turn. But not discipline test, no destiny test, no falter test for my brigade, or indeed for Charlie's, because we both just got 1 retreat. So let's see how we get on.
If we did get a 3, it would be a falter, but...
We're now on turn 8. I've only got 2 turns to survive with this brigade. Pressure's still on Charlie, it's still in the balance who'll win. Alright, let's crack on. ADC's turn 8. So, we have caused a falter test. The French artillery have destroyed one of the British battalions from that weakened right brigade. So Charlie had to do a falter test at the beginning of next turn. Unfortunately for the French, even though they lost another battalion, they don't have a broken brigade because they still have 3 units left in this right-hand brigade, and they just caused a retreat off the table with all their musketry fire for the British. So although the French rearguard is collapsing, it's going to be a really tough call for Charlie to break this brigade in the last turn. Okay, this is it. This is the last turn. I think the French might hang on. Charlie's not so sure. He has got to do a falter test this turn, and I'm just worried on his behalf that his units are basically out of position. If he'd moved his cavalry across a couple of turns earlier, then he might have a decisive influence to cause the final falter test he needs on the French. But I think it's... we'll see. Let's see how we go. This is turn 9. Can the rearguard hold on till dusk? The sun is starting to set. The French army is getting away. Can the British break? Right, that's it. That's the end of turn 9. A victory. It may be a Pyrrhic victory for the French, but a victory. So they have held up the pursuing British for long enough to allow the rest of the French army to escape. The hesitance results on the British forces, although they managed to rally this brigade. This brigade on the French left went hesitant, so it wasn't able to bring up its infantry to do any volleys against the French. They were able to bring up the 95th Rifles, and they did cause... They got 3 6s, so they did cause 3 casualties against the artillery battery, but it still only brought it to 4 because it was relatively undamaged. So the French hang on. So looking at the victory conditions, they win the game. All right, I hope everyone enjoyed the game. I'll just do a couple of final shots, and I'll see you all next time.